the utility crews, and we are too. The tri-state area at this point is bracing for a morning that could be a storm of monumental proportions. We have a live picture from Seagate, Brooklyn, where the beginnings of the fierce storm is now being felt. We have live team coverage, starting with Al Roker, who's tracking the storm's movements at this point. Al.
Well, Bill, I'll tell you, this storm is starting to really intensify. It is still down in Georgia, so this will give you an idea of what kind of a storm we are talking about. We are feeling the effects of it, and the storm is still down in Georgia. It's not even close to us yet. So we are seeing winds now gusting out of the northeast over 25 miles per hour at Central Park, and we are looking for the worst to just really start getting wound up in the next hour or two. Right now, heavy snow, as McGee mentioned, and a temperature of 30 degrees. Take a look at our satellite view, and you can see this system winding itself up and starting to work its way into the area. And the fact of the matter is, what we are looking at is, again, just the residual parts of the storm up ahead of it. We are not even at the brunt of the storm yet. Now, if we could take a look at our live Doppler radar, and we'll show you that, again, we are seeing some pretty decent amounts of snow falling in the area, because radar really doesn't reflect snow all that well. And when you start to see the darker green and the yellow, that's the more moderate snow. You know it is going pretty good to beat the band out there. And what we are seeing with our Doppler radar, we're the only station in town that has a live radar, let alone a Doppler radar. The Doppler radar will see the winds, and as those winds pick up, you're going to start to see purple on that radar, and that'll show where the most likelihood of blizzard-like conditions are going to be. Now, as we take a look right now, you're going to see what we see as the track of this storm. By noon, it'll be up over North Carolina. We'll be looking at heavy snow, possibly falling at the rate of 2 to 3 inches per hour. Winds will be up to about 35 miles per hour, and at that point, we're going to start to see some coastal flooding. Now, for 6 o'clock, north and west, very heavy snow. Along the coast, as warmer air starts to get work in closer to the coast, a mix of snow and rain, maybe even some thunderstorms. Winds up to 70 miles per hour, sustained coastal flooding, but we could have gusts of up to 85 miles per hour or more. By 10 o'clock tonight, over the Delmarva Peninsula, again, a mix of rain and snow along the coast. We think north and west, heavy snow, northeasterly winds, 40 to 70 miles per hour, major beach erosion occurring by that time. And again, if this storm moves a little further out to the east, we won't see that change over to snow and rain, and the entire viewing area will be looking at major problems. Now, again, 10 a.m. Sunday, storms up around Maine. Backside of the storm, winds are coming out of the northwest, much colder air. So we're not done yet. Snow squalls, additional accumulations, winds out of the northwest, 30 to 60 miles per hour, temperatures falling through the 20s toward the teens by tomorrow night, wind chills 15 to 30 below. And so, again, because we are in a blizzard condition, or will be later on this afternoon, some safety tips for you at home. Stay inside. Don't go out, because there's no, unless it's an emergency, there's no reason to. Make sure you got your flashlights, fresh batteries, extra batteries for your radios, your battery-operated televisions. Bring in any loose objects that are outside on the patio, the backyard. They become projectiles in winds of 60 miles per hour. Make sure you've got extra food, bottled water. If you live in a place with a well and you lose your power, you're not going to have any water. If you lose your heat, close off rooms to conserve heat. Cover the windows to make sure you don't get any drafts coming in. If you have ventured out and you get stranded in a vehicle, stay inside your car. Run your motor at least once every 10 minutes per hour to keep the heat going. But open a window a little to let in fresh air. Make sure your exhaust isn't blocked by snow to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. And exercise. Move your arms, your legs, your fingers and toes. Keep that circulation going so you're not dealing with frostbite. So, blizzard warnings in effect. A blizzard means you've got a sustained wind of 35 miles per hour or more. Visibility due to the blowing and the falling snow under a quarter of a mile. What we're looking for by 7 o'clock tonight, before it changes over to rain and snow along the coast, 8 to 12 inches of snow. Coastal sections, again, 8 to 12 inches of snow. Eastern end of Long Island, eastern Connecticut, 6 to 10 inches. North and west, 10 to 15 inches. Northwestern New Jersey, Rockland, Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange County. Central and southern New Jersey, 6 to 10 inches. And as you get further south, 4 to 6 inches. Now, with the strong winds, coastal flood warnings in effect, high tide, Seabright, New Jersey, about 11:06, the Battery, 12:29, Rye, New York, 3:15. Tides are going to be 4 to 6 feet above normal. And so with those strong winds, 60, 70 mile per hour, what we are looking at is major beach erosion and coastal flooding. So we've got a two-pronged attack here. We have lots of snow and we have lots of wind, and both of these are going to cause large amounts of damage. Bill?
All right, now I have one question. We're using the term track here, storm track. Is this storm like a railroad train that's on a track, or is there any possible thing that could potentially divert it from hitting us?
Well, Bill, if you look at if you want to keep that analogy of a train going, okay, think of the track as a flexible track, all right? It is on a track. However, that track can veer 50, 75 miles either way. If it moves 75 miles to the west, we're going to see more rain and snow along the coast because that's going to draw in the warmer water from the Atlantic. If it moves about 75 miles to the east, we're looking at much colder air. And if we take a look now, this is just from my assistant, John Marshall, computer models now showing us much colder, looks like colder air. So what that means is we are going to be seeing colder air, and that probably means more snow along the coast. So again, it depends on the track of the storm, and as we see that track, what we are looking for is, again, the possibility of any sort of variation either way, east or west. If it goes further to the east, that means what we're looking at is more snow along the coast. Further to the west, less snow, and again, a flexible track. Bill, another question?
Just one quick thing.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario for snow. What could it be?
Well, again, here in town right now, we're saying by 7 o'clock, 8 to 12 inches of snow generally. That, again, is going to be if we see the changeover to rain and snow. If we don't see that much of a changeover, let's add another 6 inches to that amount.
Okay.
And north and west, maybe another 6 inches as well. And the roads have got to be a mess. So let's check in now with shadow traffic and Anne-Marie Jeanette. Anne-Marie, what's it look like out there?
All right, thank you very much. Well, I personally saw yesterday lots of folks heading northward.
On our live Doppler radar, see if we see some winds starting to kick up. And just to the south shore of Staten Island, we're starting to see some winds, and our winds are starting to, gusting over 25 miles per hour. We had talked about the track of the storm, how that was going to determine how much snow we were going to see. So we prepared a couple of these possibilities. 7 a.m. today, again, track of the storm, it's still over Georgia, getting ready to work its way up the coast. And if it keeps this track, what we look for later this afternoon is a coastal mix of rain and snow, although what we are really concerned about now is that things are starting to get kind of cold up in the upper atmosphere. We are looking for a period of possibility of some sleet. And if that happens, we are in big trouble as far as the power situation, because that is just going to weigh down on the branches and on the tree limbs and on the power lines, and we are going to be looking at major league power outages around the tri-state region. That's if the storm moves right on top of us or a little to our west. Now, the other possibility of a track of that storm is if it moves a little to the east. And for snow lovers, this is the track that you want, because what that will mean basically is that we're going to see not only heavier snow north and west, but along the coast, we're going to see more snow and less of a mix of rain and snow and sleet. So either one is not pretty, I'll tell you. So we do have blizzard warnings in effect. A blizzard, again, just to go over it, a blizzard means you've got sustained winds of 35 miles per hour or more. You've got snow and blowing and drifting snow, creating visibilities that are under a quarter of a mile. 8 to 12 inches of snow, assuming we get a mix of freezing rain, sleet, and snow and rain by 7 o'clock. We're looking at 8 to 12 inches of snow here in New York City, central New Jersey, lower Westchester and Rockland County, lower Fairfield County, coastal Connecticut, 6 to 10 inches the eastern part of Long Island, eastern Connecticut, and central and southern New Jersey, 4 to 6 inches in the southern tip, and we're going to have to actually start to move that up within the next few minutes, because we've already got Millville, New Jersey, reporting 6 inches of snow. So we are seeing a lot of snow being generated from this system. And again, coastal flood warnings. This is a 1-2 punch storm. This is the second punch, and a big one. Coastal flood warnings in effect for the entire coastal region, with tides 4 to 6 feet above normal, with strong northeasterly winds. We're talking about winds that are going to get very close to hurricane force, sustained with gusts that will be over hurricane force winds. We'll be talking about a lot of beach erosion and a lot of flooding. This is a dangerous, powerful storm. When we go through the data that comes in from all the different Weather Service offices up and down the coast, the thing you keep seeing in this is that, I'm telling you, that all the forecasters are saying, a lot of them are old-timers, they've not seen anything like this in a long, long time. Again, the last time we had a blizzard warning issued in New York City was 10 years ago, in 1983, and that was about 10 inches of snow. So we may do better than that this time around. McGee and Bill?
Okay, Al, in terms of that 1-2 punch, the flooding, high tide, when is the next high tide expected?
Let's see, the high tide, we have high tide coming up at Seabright in New Jersey on the ocean side. It's going to be at 11:06. On the bay side, it's going to be at 1:50. At Seagate, Brooklyn, it's at 11:45 p.m. So you saw how those seas were churning up out there at Seagate. Well, they are not even at high tide yet. The tides are just getting ready to start rising. The north side of Montauk, 11:29. Willets Point, 3:37. Sandy Hook, 11:41. And at the Battery, it's 12:29. Now, by Sunday morning, it will be back into this again, and the folks who are on the northern shores, they're going to have to worry because the winds are going to be coming out of the northwest, and that'll be pushing all that water onto their shorelines.
Al, another quick question. Put on your forecaster's hat here. Monday morning, back to work. I know we're just digging into the weekend.
That's not completely true. It's just a lot less effective. So what I'm saying is that your Monday morning commute, because we know that you're not going to get all that snow, all that slush off the roads, I think is going to be...
Get 20 feet high, they say. So that's the kind of day we're facing, and this is only the beginning of it. As we drove down, I'd say we have 3 to 4 inches of snow on the ground already, and the surf up on Ocean Avenue here in Seabright was already coming over the wall. So if this is anything like the December storm, we're in for a real mess, and already you can tell that the winds are severe here, probably worse than they were only a week ago, when I stood here in about 60 or 65 mile-an-hour winds. All across New Jersey, the Red Cross has been called out, the Salvation Army, the National Guard is on alert too, and I'm sure they will be needed here. All day they have been evacuating people from Seabright because, as you know, we're going to get a high tide in here about 11:30, and that water just comes pushing into the inland areas, flooding them about 2 hours later. So we'll see how it goes so far. That's where we stand now. The winds are already 40 miles an hour. I'd say we have 3 or 4 inches of snow on the ground, and it is going to be one big mess. This is, how is it they say, deja vu all over again, I think.
That's correct, Ben.
And you've been there for so many of them.
He's not wearing the orange outfit today.
He changed outfits right now. Thank you, Ben. We're going to check back with Ben repeatedly throughout the morning, and we'll be back with extended team coverage of this storm. Stay with us.
Some say they've had enough of it. The nor'easter of December was bad enough. The last thing they want to do is deal with this. You can see they're still trying to keep up with the plowing as well. It's going to be tough. In this area, we'll point out to you, is going to even get the second wallop later on today when it changes over to rain. They're going to see 20 to 30-foot seas come crashing across the seawall in Seabright. They expect flooding as high tide comes. It should be within about an hour or so.
And last we have shots of Manhattan, I believe, yes. Doesn't look so bad, relatively speaking, Manhattan. We're talking slush, major slush on the roadways, which can cause some spin-outs and minor accidents. But we can still see the road, at least, as compared to other communities where everything is covered and white. There are, as you can see, people out. People not necessarily heeding the warnings just yet about staying inside and not traveling. Because people from all areas, from all different agencies have been telling us that it is best to stay inside unless you absolutely have to go out. But these are New Yorkers who are doing exactly what they want to do, which is as is New Yorkers want.
One of those rare occasions when you see snow building up in Manhattan. Normally the heat generated by the subway system and the power grids and the steam system below our streets keeps that melted away.
And stands to get even worse, as Bill Evans has been telling us. We're talking 10 to 12 inches of snow in the city. When was the last time the city has seen that amount of snow?
This would be something to write home about.
One of the other concerns is the electricity around the area. Not only losing electricity, but down power lines and everything that comes with that. We're going to check check in right now with Ron Morano, who is a Jersey.
And everybody I knew was laughing at me. All my friends on the East Coast were buried under snow. I had sent my dad Broadway tickets for his birthday. I called him and said, "So are you guys going to the show?" He said, "Going to the show? I can't see the car."
I think I believe they closed the theaters that night.
They did. They did.
Which is a very rare event.
Indeed.
We also have some pictures of the storm that was on this day in 1888. Let's take a look at what that looks like.
The interesting thing about this storm, this was a lot of parallels. I mean, I'm telling you, this happened again from the 12th to the 14th.
Look at that vent.
And you're talking about anywhere from 21 to, in some areas, in like Saratoga, New York, 51 inches of snow. In New York City, we're talking about, they had snow drifts of over 20 feet. A lot of power lines and a lot of telephone lines went down. And after that blizzard, that's when they started putting the phone lines underground. They started, because if you remember, you see those old, I don't know if you can hear that thunder.
Heard that
it's
thunder.
Incredible. Unfortunately, with this storm, 400 people lost their lives in the metropolitan area and on up into New England, but thousands more lost their lives at sea. And the incredible thing about that storm was that the day before, the observations were such that actually temperatures were in the 40s and 50s. Flowers were actually starting to bloom. And then all of a sudden, this storm came out of nowhere and just buried the Northeast. Hamilton Fish, the grandfather of the representative up in Westchester, recorded winds of over 75 miles per hour in Westchester. So it was an amazing, amazing storm. And now, ironically, we have something like this going on, not quite as bad. We don't want to try to intimate that kind of a destruction is going to take place. But I mean, it is very ironic that this is happening on the 105th anniversary of what they call the Great White Hurricane.
It is amazing. And we got a lot more warning thanks to you, Al. So hopefully people are prepared and they're going to stay indoors.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to have much more coverage of this storm when we come back.
Lightning, what we call heavy convective snow. Now, the storm path, something I wanted to show you also this morning as we looked at computer models and we looked at areas where we expect to see the snow to generate. We're going to watch, by 6 o'clock this evening, this is where we're expecting the low center to be, right here, as you see the cursor, right here across the eastern sections of Virginia, just to the south of Washington, D.C. The path of the storm, which is very important because we watch it, should take it across the Delmarva Peninsula, and will probably continue to carry that system well to the north. It will just drive it right here across the city and right on into the south of Boston, right here in this area here. We're watching that closely because as that storm system moves in that area, it will continue to produce a lot of winds that are going to be out of the east and northeast. It will just continue to push in a severe amount of snow and wind and also freezing rain to the coastal sections right here. The winds are going to be out of the northeast, coming in right across Montauk Point, the Twin Forks, and creating a tremendous amount of snow that will be falling in that area. I want to highlight this arrow for you because that's generally where we might expect to see the storm track to be. It's possible that it could move in this direction 50 to 100 miles westward. If it does do that, that's when we'll see more of a change over to ice and snow later on in the day today. And as a matter of fact, the snowfall amounts, we've updated those. I wanted to show you that we're really expecting 10 inches of snow in the city, possibly going to see even higher than that. I would expect to see not much of a changeover. Looking at the thicknesses that we were looking at earlier in the atmosphere, the changeover will come about 4 o'clock this afternoon, but the problem with the changeover is because the snow is driving to the north with the low-pressure storm system, it's not expected to probably change over but for a few hours, 3 hours, 4 hours possibly, and that changeover will be more significant on eastern Long Island than coastal Connecticut and then work its way into the Jersey Shore. As the low pulls out quickly to the north, we could see another round of 2 inches, 3 inches of snow by Sunday morning, and the inland areas will take even more than that. It's possibly they could get 4 to 6 inches of snow at that time. We will continue to see white
severe blizzard, one of the worst in the city's history. We will keep you up to date. You need to stay with Channel 11.
This has been a special report from Channel 11 News.
Over South Carolina, in the very low portion of your picture there, you see that tongue of clear skies there. That's the dry tongue of air that you hear us talk about often. That's what that is. Right around the Augusta, Georgia area, they experienced the lowest barometric pressure in the history of Augusta, Georgia, and that really tells you, even though you may be confused by that, that tells you that that is a severe storm system when you have record low pressure inside of a low. AccuWeather was characterizing it as a level 3 hurricane. We rate those on the Saffir-Simpson scale of 1 to 5, and that is a level 3 type hurricane, but winter components. As the storm moves northward, it's just producing a ton of snow, particularly in areas to the south of the city. You can see the shades of green now reaching from north of Albany across Massachusetts and Connecticut, across Long Island, further south now across to the Delmarva Peninsula. There have been areas like Wilmington that have been, Wilmington, Delaware has been reporting some ice pellets and sleet. That's basically where we call the changeover line is lying. Now, when you look further to the south, we really are seeing what has been a storm system that continues to produce a lot of snow that has been right down south. I want to show you that area to the south there where the precipitation is its strongest, because in that area there's a lot of snow and blinding conditions where there's been cloud-to-ground lightning, and continues to be a lot of snow that will be moving our way throughout the day today and tonight. And the snowstorm will not go away until tomorrow morning. Now, that area down to the south there, that's the area where we're seeing the heaviest snowfall amounts that will be moving our way. The snow has been moving to the northeast at about 15 miles per hour, and that snow in that area around the Washington, D.C. area has produced upwards of around 8 to 10 inches of snow so far there. And I mentioned some of that as ice pellets and sleet. We talk about it changing over in the afternoon, but that changeover is going to be delayed till around 4 or 5 o'clock, and that will be only in the extreme coastal sections. That's coastal Connecticut, the New York City area, Brooklyn, Queens, the Jersey Shore, out Long Island, where we expect to see a changeover to probably, I would expect there's a good chance, a 50-50 chance that it does not change over to rain. It would be more of a nature of ice pellets, sleet, possibly freezing rain, because the thicknesses of this storm are very, very cold, and the water temperature right out into the Atlantic and New York Harbor is around 37, 38 degrees. So we expect to see just a little changeover before the snowstorm moves to the north and changes back once again to snow, where we could get another 2 to 4 inches of snow throughout the day today. Blizzard conditions, blizzard warning, coastal flood warning is in effect for today. We expect to see what will be a very, very heavy snowstorm throughout the afternoon. Some snowfall reports I wanted to give you that we just received. At Belmead, New Jersey, 7 inches of snow so far. East Millstone, New Jersey, 6 inches of snow as of 8 o'clock this morning. Ossining has reported 4.5 inches of snow. Massapequa, 5. Woodbridge, New Jersey, 5 inches of snow. Harrison, New Jersey, 6.5. Elizabeth, 3 inches of snow. High Point, New Jersey, 5. Dobbs Ferry has reported 6 inches of snow, and the winds are continuing to be around 30 miles per hour. In most locations, the gusts are. The heaviest winds and highest tides will not occur until tonight as the low-pressure storm center approaches. Right now, that center is over South Carolina, so it has a ways to go before it reaches the New York City area. That's all I have for now. We're going to take an in-depth look at the low-pressure system as it continues moving up the coast more in just a few minutes, and I'll have that information for you. So, Victoria, Tim, back to you.
I expect something of this magnitude. Did you?
Well, we were watching the storm since early in the week, and when you watch, what we have is 4 or 5 different computer forecast models that we watch. Snow in the wintertime can be the easiest thing to forecast, or it can be the most difficult thing to forecast, depending upon the intensity of the storm and if there is a changeover to rain or to sleet. That's awfully hard to predict. But we were watching the storm on Tuesday, and as Tim was alluding to earlier, we were talking about we have never seen numbers associated with a storm like this before. That's why we call it a historical storm of intense magnitude. And the reason why is because the low core of the storm and the ingredients around the storm system itself, the fact that it worked its way down into the Gulf of Mexico, picked up a ton of warm Gulf moisture. It even snowed in places as far south as Mobile, Alabama, which is right on the Gulf Coast. 13 inches of snow already today in Birmingham, Alabama, a place where they hardly ever see snow whatsoever, particularly in March. So we were watching the storm since the first part of the week, and we knew that it was going to be intense. We were expecting it to deepen and lower, however, this evening over Virginia, but that storm of the magnitude that it is already deepened and lowered over Georgia. That's even further south, so the possibility of it being even more extreme is possible for this afternoon and tonight. That's why we've raised the snowfall amounts possibly to around 1 foot of snow in the city, and could be even higher, while the outlying areas could get as much as 2 feet of snow. So never in my career have I seen a storm like this. That's why you often say this is a once-in-a-generation type storm, once-in-a-lifetime storm. You hear those that type of hyperbole alluded to. I go back to the storm of the blizzard of 1888 in comparison to this storm, because it was on that day, the March 12th through the 14th, that just like today, in 1888, that we had the same type of storm, which produced 20 inches and 9/10 here in the city. So you don't see these storms very often. They are very rare, and this one is going to get a lot worse throughout the afternoon.
Thanks, Bill. And if we can add another description to that, it's a killer storm, because as it made its way up the coast, we're talking about 5 deaths so far, not in this area, but along the coast, being attributed to this storm.
I just, while Bill was doing his forecast there, I had to peek outside. I went out in the lobby, everything is moving on a horizontal basis. The wind, the snow, everything. It doesn't come down, it blows.
7 inches of snow. If we could take a look right now. Staten Island, 7 inches of snow. Atlantic City, 4 inches. Millville, New Jersey, 6. Central Park, up to about 4 inches now. Out at Islip, 3 inches of snow. And in Ossining, they're reporting 5 inches of snow. Philadelphia, 6. It's just really incredible. Take a look at our live Doppler radar, and you will see that, again, we have quite a wide area of precipitation. And if you're looking out your window, you're looking on the map, and you're looking out your window and saying, well, I don't see snow over my area. The fact of the matter is, snow does not reflect the radar as well. Think about a snowflake. It's got jagged edges. Well, what the radar does, it sends a beam out, and it finds precipitation, and that beam bounces off of whatever precipitation is out there and comes back. Well, when it hits raindrops, those are rounded, nice reflective surfaces, sends a lot of the beam back to the radar. When a radar beam hits a snowflake, a lot of all those pretty little jagged edges, it deflects a lot of the beam, so it doesn't send quite as much of it back, and so we don't get a true picture of how much snow is actually out there. But for just the fact that there's some dark green and yellow there shows that there's quite a bit of snow falling. Now, we mentioned the track of the storm. We figured there were 2 basic tracks that this storm was going to take. The one possible track was that it would come up out of Georgia, hug the coast, and then move right on top of us or a little further to the west. And if that had happened, we'd be looking for a fairly substantial mix of rain and snow along the coast and heavy snow north and west. After a decent amount of time, the heavy snow along the coast would change over to rain and snow before changing back late tonight, early tomorrow. Then we had the other possible track, and that track would take it a little further to our east, which means there isn't that much of a chance for the warm Atlantic air to start factoring into the coastal areas and changing the snow over to rain and snow. Well, we have the latest information in, and it looks like the track of the storm, in fact, is going to stay much to our east. It may cross over eastern Long Island, and that means why we still think we're going to see a mix of rain and snow. It's not going to be that much of a mix, and it may go back and forth, while north and west, much colder air, much more snow, and that's why we have upgraded the amounts of snow. As you can see, some folks out on the roads taking it easy, but again, on the New York City streets, look at how much slush and snow is on the roadways. I'm not sure which avenue this is, one of the more heavily traveled boulevards, obviously, but again, the cab drivers are out there. They're going to try to make a buck, and folks are shoveling. And again, take care. Don't try to overdo it, as Bill had talked earlier. There are also some other tips, some safety tips you can handle, okay? First of all, unless you have to go out, unless you need the food or something like that, please.
Sunshine, a beautiful day. Now the storm center working its way up the coast, and in the lower portion of your picture, right there at the very bottom, right over South Carolina, you see a little tongue of darker, grayer clouds. That's a tongue of dry air that comes in with the eastern section of a low-pressure storm system. That's where the storm center is. You can see it is just racing northward. It will intensify, and when the storm system pushes northward like that, it pushes precipitation and walls of water northward in the northeastern sector of a low-pressure storm system. That's where it's most intense winds and gusts, and also most intense precipitation is. You can see the storm center, when we look at this radar picture, the storm center is over Carolina, but the more intense snow is to the south, over the Delmarva Peninsula, over Delaware, southern sections of New Jersey, Cape May. Very intense, blinding, whiteout snows. The atmosphere is totally saturated, 100% humidity outside, so it is tremendous amount of snow that this system is going to produce. The low center, like we were showing you, now here's a map to show you where the center is. It is over South Carolina. It will move northward by tomorrow morning. It will move right over the city. And we're expecting it to be probably just a little bit east of New York City. As a matter of fact, our latest forecast that we're showing, the storm to be over Norfolk, Virginia tonight, by tomorrow morning, somewhere between Islip and Montauk Point, possibly getting toward Boston. Now, that's very critical because the storm centers in these lows wobble east and west. Should the storm center wobble 50 to 100 miles either side of New York City, that's very critical. That's just a small area. So the low center, if it moves to the east, that produces more cold air along the coast. That in turn produces more snow and limits the changeover to sleet or to freezing rain. And we're only expecting, possibly if this storm track continues, to see limited changeover, more in the form of ice and sleet, and no liquid precipitation. That would be rain. No rain except for central and eastern Long Island and maybe eastern sections of coastal Connecticut. Now, snowfall amounts. This is very important because last night we were telling you 6 to 12 inches of snow for the city. We've already reached the 6-inch snow amount in the city, and amounts are even getting higher as we speak because the snow is falling at the rate of 2 to 3 inches of snow per hour. So in the city, expect to see 12 inches of snow by this evening. 4 o'clock is possibly when we could see a changeover to just ice and sleet. Now that's very important because out on Long Island it's likely that it will change to rain, and as the snowstorm moves to the north, it will change back to snow tonight. And of course the temperature is going to be well below freezing into the 20s. So whatever falls as rain is quickly going to freeze. That will down power lines, and that will down tree limbs onto power lines, causing widespread power outages. So freezing rain tonight will be a terrible problem in central and eastern Long Island.
Than the forecast models were projecting, and deepening, and actually taking a course that will probably deliver even more snow than anticipated, if you can believe that. One of the things it's easy to do when you watch this storm this morning is say, okay, I see the snow, it's not that bad, it's blowing around a little bit, I can see out my window, I can get out the driveway, I can go to the store, I can head to the gun show, I can do, you know, whatever other stories we've heard this morning. But you need to know that we're just now getting into some stronger winds, and this afternoon it's even going to get worse. We've had 63 mile-per-hour wind gusts reported along our coastlines now. We're getting 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts inland. We're also experiencing 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Charleston, North Carolina, around the system, up to 99-mile-per-hour wind gusts around the low itself, which is still off the South Carolina shoreline and moving north. So with all that said, just know that it will get worse this afternoon. Don't look out the window now and think that it's going to be okay, because it's not going to be. You need to settle in right now. You've had time to make your plans. Settle in and stay with us. Let's show you the latest radar imagery. We'll show you exactly what's going on in our area, and it's pretty easy to see that we're covered up with moisture. Heavier bands of moisture even in the darker shades of green to the southern areas of New Jersey, also around the Delmarva Peninsula, and believe it or not, you're picking up yellow, which is incredibly heavy snow, falling at the rate of 2 to 3 inches per hour. And with these winds, you know it's that horizontal snow that is blowing sideways that tends to stick on road signs even, not just on flat surfaces. That is all moving up in our direction. Now, in some areas are reporting some rain down along the very immediate coastline, but most of this is falling in the form of snow, and we need to prepare for a big, heavy snow event. So we've upped those totals. Now we'll show you the system exactly where it is now as it sits off the Georgia, South Carolina shoreline. You can see the area of low pressure that's spending some snow, certainly well inland. There are blizzard warnings out all over the eastern seaboard for today into tonight. Heavy thunderstorms in Florida. We again have 70-mile-per-hour gusts around Charleston. Now, areas that are not used to seeing snow, Birmingham, Alabama, getting snow, and not just a little snow. 13 inches of snow on the ground now in Birmingham. Chattanooga, Tennessee, another 13 inches of snow there. So as we watch this system move to the north, by Sunday morning it's already well sitting right on top of us practically. We're amending the path now to say that it moves over Long Island, and we were saying that it crosses the city before. Now, why is this important? The farther east it goes, the more cold air is allowed to be pulled to the coastline, and that means the more snow we're likely to see and the less that's likely to change over. Speaking of changeover, here's what we think is probably going to happen to this. Snow, ice to rain in the darkest shaded blue areas, which means Long Island and the South Jersey shoreline. Yes, it's likely there will be a period of time, though we think now it'll be short, just a few hours coming late this afternoon, that you will see a little ice and a little bit of rain. However, from the city, actually even, well, you know, you get outside to Brooklyn and Queens and all those areas just outside of town. You work north to Rye, Westchester, also toward Fairfield County in Connecticut, that you'll see snow changing over to ice, and that's going to be pretty rough in itself, because on top of the snow you're going to see a coating of ice. Ice is going to hit power lines. We're then going to have transformers blowing as well, as these transformers get covered with ice for a period of a couple of hours. There's going to be a lot of power outages with this, and at some points the ice will probably be worse for us than the snow is. Inland areas will see mostly snow, and you'll watch it accumulate and pile up on the ground. We're talking about the possibility of maybe 3 feet of snow for the Poconos, Catskills, areas like that. I wouldn't call it out of the question for 12 to 36 inches of snow in northern suburbs. Now, in town, we've been kind of watching this, and last night we were saying 12 inches of snow in town. This morning we were wondering, well, are we right? Are we not right? Will it be a little less? Will the changeover knock some of those snowfall totals down? At this time, it appears that no, it won't. The changeover really won't be for that extended period of time. We're looking at maybe an hour to 2 hours of a changeover to rain later on this afternoon. So we pushed those snowfall totals back up to 1 foot and more for town. 6 to 12 inches likely out on the island where, in fact, when that changeover occurs, the rain and the ice will beat down some of the snow that's accumulated on the ground. Now let's get to the other problem. Tides and gusty winds. Again, we're talking about winds from 45 to 80 miles per hour. And as bad as it's been today, remember, we've only seen wind gusts so far up to 60 miles per hour. So we're adding on wind speed as the afternoon goes on. And it's likely that you'll see wind gusts up to 100 miles per hour in some areas, particularly shoreline areas with this storm. Tides are running 4 to 6 feet above normal in every town in our coastal area. Even places that have not seen water before in coastal flooding, it's likely that you're going to have some problem. You're going to lose some property. You're going to lose certainly a lot of beach. And let's be honest, there's not that much beach after 12 nor'easters, 10 nor'easters that have moved up the shoreline this fall and winter. So we're really in a bad situation for this strength of a storm to be moving. As Bill's been telling you this morning, there's some similarities in strength between this and an actual hurricane. Not that they're the same system, they're certainly not, but in strength. When we say that it's as strong as a hurricane, and that's the only reason we're telling you that is so you'll take it seriously. It's going to be pounding the water. Ocean waves will be 20 to 30 feet high just offshore. Sound waves will be 10 to 15 feet, and that's unusual as well. These are the next tide times that we're concerned about. You know, we're just on the downside of a high tide time around our area sometimes that we know exactly what we're saying, and sometimes we throw around words like that and say that the storm system's deepening. Basically what's happening is it's getting stronger. We're watching the pressure drop in the center of this storm. It's tightening up, it's getting stronger, it's pulling in more air, more moisture. So when we say deepening, it maybe a better word to be more descriptive would be strengthening. This thing is going to set records for actual low pressure readings all up and down the coastline. It's that strong, it's that tough, and as those pressures go down, you can expect the wind speeds to increase, the snowfall totals to get higher, the accumulations to be pumped up by this system as it gets stronger.
Okay, Sam, thanks very much.
You know, all morning long we've been talking about closings, about the severity of the storms, hearing a lot of words from people, but nothing is as effective.
The houses, and as you can see, that house built down there, built in front of the dunes. This has been a problem in Dewey Beach, that people build in front of the dunes, and as you can see, it does cause a problem in a storm. There is a mandatory evacuation for this stretch of the beach along the Delaware shore. Dewey Beach does not have a dune structure like the other beaches do, Bethany and Rehoboth, so they're much more vulnerable. About 100 people have been evacuated along the beachfront, just as a precaution, because again, the storm is getting more intense. Just a minute, let me tell my cameraman, can you iris down so they can see this a little bit better, Mike? Iris down. Is that better? That's better. We're trying to work under intense conditions here. The people have been evacuated to a school. No one else has been evacuated, and the townspeople say they've seen a lot of storms, and while this may look fairly dramatic, nothing compared to what they've seen before, and they are not planning to leave their homes unless it becomes critical that they do. And so far, the road out of town, Route 1, is still open. It is starting to have some standing water, a little bit of mild flooding, but not enough to cause any problems. The police are trying to keep the water off the road. And again, the only evacuation so far is here in Dewey. And again, wow, this looks very dramatic. Let's turn around and look this way, Mike. Oh, this looks very dramatic with the water coming up underneath the houses like this. They are beachfront property. They're built on pylons. They can withstand this, and in other storms that have been more intense, the water is actually broken. The waves have been crashing against the balconies. So at this point, it's not good, but it is not as bad as it could be. This thing could intensify by 5 o'clock this afternoon. We will be here. Wendy Rieger reporting live from Dewey Beach. Back to you in New York.
All right, Wendy, thank you. You could understand with that breakup in the transmission, we are reporting live, but most important, it gives you an idea of what is heading our way.
Absolutely. Up here and down there around Delaware where Wendy Rieger was, you can see all that very, very dark green. That is very intense weather, and it is moving to the north, and it's going to be working its way in here. And again, I think it bears repeating. We have some safety tips for you. Hopefully you're not going to need these, but this is what we're seeing. Stay inside. If you don't have to go out, unless there is an emergency, Other radars see precipitation, and by the way, we're the only station that has a live radar for you, let alone a Doppler. And what this does is not only sees the precipitation, but it sees the winds within the precipitation, the directions the winds are moving. And so this measures that, and we see how turbulent it is, and that's where the strongest winds are. And you can see we are now starting to pick up some pretty strong winds. And again, the Doppler effect is not as good in snow as it is in rain because we don't get as much reflectivity from the radar from snowflakes as we do from raindrops. So that's really some rough stuff out there. Again, we've replotted the track of the storm for you right now. The way it looks at noontime right now, well, we're expecting that we got the storm now moving, I should say,
showing you, even though there's a glitch in that one item, how the lighter clouds are all the way down through, well, southern Florida, but look at the spin, the heavier bands of moisture well in advance of that low pressure center. The low is actually sitting right off the coast of South Carolina, which would be kind of on the right-hand side of your screen. You can see Florida there in the clearing. You can also see Georgia and South Carolina. But the low is sitting right there, and those light gray areas of clouds and the heavier bands of moisture are all revolving around it. This will tighten up within the next 3 or 4 hours, all that circulation that's just to the north of us. And basically what that means is we're not out of it yet. We certainly got several more hours of rough weather ahead. I think we'll probably be in this thing until 10, 11 o'clock, midnight tonight, with the heavy falling snow, the strong gusty winds, just kind of getting worse and worse as the hours go on, typically throughout the night. Maybe it'll start to ease up a little in the morning, but we're still going to hold off on the ease-off timing for that for a little while. We just don't want to say that yet as we're watching the system begin to move up in our area.
When you look at, thanks, Sam.
The density of that system, I mean,
yes,
that is
to see it stretch as far as it is.
But it is just completely dense, this white band. It's really frightening to see that.
And to see it come circling back to us, that's, you know, that counterclockwise. It would be great if we could see it flare out into the ocean, but this is coming right at us.
It's hitting. It's certainly hitting.
Nothing we can do. Certainly it's pounding the coast. And
Jersey has really been hit. As we've been checking through the morning, New Jersey has really been hard.
One of the key questions involving this storm, of course, is for our coastal residents in Long Island and New Jersey. The high tide times along the ocean front is basically past. The wind did not get strong enough soon enough to create much of a tidal problem now. The high tides in the back bays will be several hours later. That will cause moderate tidal flooding, but I don't believe it'll be severe. The real tide problem may come for Long Island and New Jersey toward midnight tonight and thereafter, when the storm center will be at its worst. Right now on the radar loop, you can see the area of yellow there. That's areas of heavier precipitation moving in. The rain-snow line is basically sitting across southern Monmouth, northern Ocean County, and south central Jersey, across down into Millville. Philadelphia's had rain and sleet and snow mixed. We have anywhere from 6 to 12 inches across the metropolitan area. New Jersey, for example, Chatham has 11 inches, Elizabeth has 7.5, Inglewood 6.6, Leonia 6, Wayne 8. You get the idea. It is a mess. Here's what our estimated snowfall prediction is by the time all is said and done. You'll see these snowfall amounts over 2 feet will be occurring into the northwest Jersey, 12 to 18 in the city and western Long Island, and 4 to 8 and less along the South Jersey coast. We'll keep you posted right here, Fox Channel 5. Amy?
Okay, thanks, Alan. The storm has battered the South and Mid-Atlantic states. A tornado touched down in central Florida, killing 3. Heavy winds knocked bleachers in a tennis stadium in Tampa, and extensive power outages have been reported all across the southeast. And around here, officials, of course, are telling everybody, if you don't absolutely have to go out, just don't. And if you really have to, here's Candy Roth to tell you how to do it.
Well, it won't be easy if you need a Long Island Railroad train, Amy, that's for sure.
Miles per hour. Now, why that's important is seems to be coinciding with our high tide times. Now, the concern in those two areas coming together at the same time means that those strong gusty winds coming offshore, pushing the extremely high tides, means more water likely to be onshore than we're calling for right now. Now, that's a concern right now. We haven't really decided to issue any additional watches or warnings, and the Weather Service certainly hasn't yet either, based on that information. But right now, as we're timing this storm out, as we watch it move up the coastline, and that's kind of what we do as we sit here now. We time it out, we look at where the peak winds are, we look at what the expectations of movement are with this system, and we kind of try to figure out what's going to happen, what time, where. And one of the concerns that we have in watching it within the last hour is that we think the highest wind gusts will probably be on top of us by about 10 to midnight tonight. That's anywhere from 75 to 100 mile per hour wind gusts, and it seems to be coinciding coinciding with a high tide time, or one that will shortly be right after that, and we're a little concerned about the extra pressure of that water up against the shoreline, up against those already battered seawalls, and what kind of damage that might incur. So let's take a look at the latest radar, actually satellite imagery we've got for you up that National Lou, because what seems to be so interesting about this to folks is look at the shaded gray areas down in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. You're able to see the state of Florida, which is easily recognizable, the long peninsula sticking out into the ocean there that borders the Gulf and the Atlantic, and you're able to see that beneath the kind of lighter gray shaded clouds. That doesn't mean that Florida is out of trouble yet. Remember, we've seen 109-mile-per-hour wind gusts all the way down in the Florida Keys off the dry Tortugas with this system, so it's still very gusty, it's still very rough in that direction down there, but it means that the clouds, the circulation of this system extends all the way from Cuba. Look at that, the swirl all the way up the edge of your screen kind of turns around when it gets to Maine and then starts heading back around the Great Lakes all the way into western Kentucky and western Tennessee. And what you will notice happening later on this afternoon is that swirl tightens up as we pull more and more moisture in, and this storm kind of tightens up and starts to move up in northern areas. And that's kind of, again, the reason why we say the worst is not over for us. We're certainly watching for later on this afternoon as the wind speeds pick up to see what will happen up against our coastline with those tides. Here's a look at the latest radar shot. You're also seeing some moisture. We're going to put it in loop for you here. You're seeing all the rain that's kind of sitting on top of the area, heavier bands of rain and snow just off the shoreline area. Rain, you say? Yes, and we're saying rain on the South Jersey shoreline. We also have some moving right. It's kind of a very rainy, snowy mix, almost a freezing mix of rain right on shore, but most areas are still getting snow, and you can see that heavier moisture ring right up, and there's the current picture right there, almost up to the city, but certainly up to the edge of the island. So here's the snow-rain line that we have, and we're calling it sleet or rain all the way up the New Jersey shoreline, past Spring Lake, really up to Toms River, and practically up to the Battery, where that mixture of a light sleet, light rain kind of thing, more wet than anything else, is falling up against the shoreline, and expect that that will kind of move on up the coast for a while this afternoon now, but again, change over to snow before all is said and done. There's the storm for you. Sitting down now, though, we need to
Since 1985, I don't ever remember seeing anything like this in snow. All right, we've had some pretty heavy thunderstorms, and you've picked up a lot of turbulence, but I don't ever remember seeing anything look quite like this. And the thing about this is that it's all very solid. That dark green and the yellow, that's moderate snow, heavy snow. The yellow is the heavier snow, and then the purple is the Doppler effect. That's the turbulence within the storm. Okay, that shows where the highest winds are. And as you can see, we have widespread high winds now starting to work their way into the area. Now, this is the track of the storm. This is the way we see it right now. It's going to come right across probably eastern Long Island and on into Boston. And so what that means is there's going to be heavier snow north and west of the city. We are getting a mix of some frozen precip, some sleet, and some frozen rain in there, but it's still going to stay mostly snow. I mean, we can hear it hitting and pebbling on the window here, but for the most part, we're seeing snow falling. So we do have snow over our area. A mix of frozen precipitation is trying to work its way into the region, and there is rain down in southern and southeastern New Jersey. So we do have a blizzard warning in effect now for northwestern, until tonight, really, for the entire tri-state region. 1 to 3 feet of snow northwestern New Jersey, Rockland, Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Orange counties, and points north. Also in the northern third of Connecticut, we have 12 to 20 inches of snow for western New Jersey, central New Jersey, New York City's 5 boroughs, western Long Island, and most of the Connecticut coastline. Then 10 to 15 inches the eastern half of Long Island, and also for south central New Jersey, 6 to 10 inches of snow in southern New Jersey. And again, we're looking at high tides for tomorrow morning. Coastal flood warnings are in effect for the entire.
Amy, we're beginning to see the snow mix with sleet, and in some changes change over to completely sleet. That means the snow accumulations will probably be only on the order of an additional 2 to 4 to 3 to 6 inches. So far, LaGuardia has picked up 11 inches of snow. Most places will end up with over a foot of snow. As far as the winds, they're going to continue to remain very strong. We're going to see some gusts as high as hurricane strength or slightly above that during the next several hours. Now, the good news is along the Jersey coast, the winds will shift around to the west by early tonight, by about 7 or 8 o'clock, but not until midnight along the Long Island coastline. So still some flooding is certainly a possibility for at least the next several hours. The storm system shows up beautifully on satellite. You can see the swirl of clouds as it's over North Carolina. It's continuing to move to the northeast, and this is just a powerhouse of a storm. Notice the gray area back to our south across the Carolinas and wedging up into Virginia. That's where there is drier air punching northward, and I think our precip will cut off temporarily early tonight, so a bit of a reprieve during the nighttime hours, and then we'll get what we call a backlash snow, maybe an additional 2 to 4 inches late tonight into early tomorrow as bitterly cold air moves in here. Storm totals for the New York metro area up toward Wayne and Paramus in New Jersey, 12 to 18 inches, lesser amounts as we get out on Long Island. So we'll certainly keep you up to date here in the Weather Center. Back to you, Amy.
Okay, thank you very much. And Fox News is out in force covering this storm. A news conference at police headquarters is scheduled for 3 o'clock.
And you will see that low pressure system now has formed. There's the low pressure system, not formed, but has tracked up now to just the northernmost part of North Carolina. So it is getting to be a major situation. Now, our live Doppler radar, you can still see that we've got a lot of turbulence there. That's the Doppler effect. And that yellow is showing up probably so well because we do have a lot of sleet now mixing in with the snow. LaGuardia Airport, a 52-mile-per-hour sustained wind with a gust of 71 miles per hour. Well, there's 11 inches on the ground. JFK has 37-mile-per-hour sustained winds, gust of 53. At Newark, 11 inches on the ground with a gust of 49 miles per hour. In Trenton, 58-mile-per-hour gust with 10 inches of snow on the ground. So what we are looking at is some pretty good winds now starting to work their way into the area. The track of the storm now moving. Looks like it will sometime late tonight, early tomorrow morning, move over eastern Long Island. And again, we're still going to get that mix of snow, but what we're looking at now is the likelihood of not a complete changeover to rain/snow or freezing rain, but more of a frozen precipitation with heavier snow north and west of the city. There you can see where we see most of the snow right now, but that area of purple, deep purple, where the mix is now working its way north into the southernmost parts of Long Island and on into New York. Panic people, but I think in a orderly and steady fashion, the folks who do in fact want to leave should be assisted to leave. But whether it should be this emergency move, I don't think so. I mean, we don't see those winds at this hour. I think there's still some time before before the hurricane force winds or gusts at any rate come on in here. We still have winds, pretty steady winds now, anywhere 45 to 55, 60 miles per hour. The gusts, however, are still a ways away. Some approaching 70 miles per hour. Last hour at LaGuardia 71. So I think they have some time.
Right, with 3 hours or so to go. Nevertheless, if you're going to go to a shelter, you ought to start thinking about it now. Get some things together. You might be spending the night.
Certainly, and of course, the question, and it also depends, I guess, on the area. Because it may just as well be, if it looks like your area is going to be kind of dangerous to be in, then by all means, it's worth the risk to go out in the.
However, when we are out in the elements, such as we are now, the precipitation is now not as much snow as it is ice and sleet. I hope you can see it bouncing around in our camera light. Boy, does it hurt when it hits the exposed skin. And so I'm trying to look glamorous, but I'm unable to do so at the moment. The wind is blowing at an incredible rate. I, of course, have nothing here with which to measure the velocity of the wind. Suffice it to say that this rather large object, this reporter, is being buffeted by these winds, as is our camera, our van, and the mast that is sending this signal to you right now. We have heard reports that emergency shelters have been opened up in Mamaroneck and in Peekskill. You would be well advised to call the non-emergency number.
A couple of reports in from New Jersey, Clifton and Iselin, about 10 to 10.5 inches of snow. Sparta, 10 to 13 inches. Scarsdale, about 11 inches. So anywhere from about 9, 10 inches of snow to as much as 13 to 14 inches of snow pretty much sums up how much snow we have seen. And I think we're going to continue to see some more precip for the next several hours. Let's take a look right now at radar. I'll show you exactly why. We have a huge area of precip still moving northward out of Maryland into southern Philadelphia. Now we're seeing the precip mixed with sleet, and we're going to continue to see that snow, sleet, freezing rain mixture for the next several hours. That will help keep additional accumulations down. But on top of the 10, 12 inches we've seen, I think we'll see at least another 3 to 7 inches of snow. And then it's going to snow again later tonight after we get a lull in the precip. You can see that red dash line north and west of that line, still all snow. That includes White Plains, Morris, up toward Poughkeepsie, Wayne, still reporting generally snow. South of that line, that's where we have the sleet, freezing rain, and snow mixture. But look at, nobody's warmer than 30 degrees. So if we do see any rain, it's not going to happen for the next several hours. Most of the precip will stay in the form of snow or sleet. There you see the total accumulations, 12 to 18 inches for most of us. Out on the island, a little bit less. But you get up into northwest New Jersey, a few places will probably finish with 2 feet of snow out of this system. Just an incredible storm. Our forecast does include a blizzard warning. It also includes a coastal flood warning. As I said, 12 to 18 inches of total snowfall is expected, and there you can see the winds. Winds along the coast could even gust higher than that. I guess the only saving grace for some coastal areas is the fact that later tonight the winds will shift out of the west. That could be some good news, but between now and then it is going to be absolutely devastating. We're going to continue to monitor the storm, but the latest now is about 10 to 12 inches of snow, another 2 to maybe as much as 6 or 7 inches of snow, then a lull in the precip early tonight, and then another 2 to 4 inches of snow later tonight. This storm will not be done with us until probably sometime later tomorrow. Amy?
Okay, I just want to ask you before you go about the winds. A lot of these live shots we've been seeing, you know, there is a lot of precipitation, and that is definitely a problem, but the winds seem to be kicking up something fierce. When do you think they're going to be the strongest?
I think between about now and, say, midnight, they'll be the strongest out of the northeast to east, and that's where the coastal areas will really get hit. We could see winds gusting over 80 miles per hour, maybe as high as 90 miles per hour in some instances. So between now and midnight, and as we get closer to midnight, we will approach high tide again. So that's going to be a problem. Then the winds will shift around to the west after midnight, and that could cause some problems for some of the back bay areas along the Jersey Shore as well as Long Island. So this storm is not going to just end tonight.
Now it is sleeting, and the winds are going. What's our latest wind gust? At
57 miles.
We have a wind gust of 57 miles per hour at Central Park. So it is very windy, and again, the storm working its way up the coast. Let's take a look at the live Doppler radar again, and I'll tell you, phew, this thing is incredible. I mean, a lot of that yellow is sleet, but the purple, that's the turbulence. That's the Doppler effect, where a storm system can measure, the radar can measure the actual winds within a storm. And it would stand to reason it's going to measure a lot better with sleet than it would with snow. So we are getting better pickup of turbulence, and you can see it is all over the tri-state region now. Now, again, the path of the storm is going to tell the tale, and it looks like it is going to be a more easterly path than we first had thought. Actually, we were saying an easterly path, but it's even more east than we had thought originally. And so that means more cold air, and that's why we're getting sleet as opposed to a mix of rain and snow, or maybe going over to all rain. So what it looks like now is that we're basically going to be seeing more of a frozen mix of precipitation, more snow and sleet and freezing rain than a mix of snow and rain and north and west. It is going to be heavier. So again, what we're looking for tonight, 6 o'clock, we should be really into the brunt of the storm. A lot of winds, northeasterly winds, 40 to center. But we do have some interesting news. There is a there is a flood warning now.